Hello, everyone. This is AAE Principal, Mr. Adam Johnson. I hope that all of you are well. And the purpose of this is to provide a short video with a slide deck that is an overview on a number of the new and improved grading and assessment practices that we have been implementing as a school. We have been engaged in this work for several years now, and this year have implemented a number of changes alongside other CREC secondary schools who are also doing this work. And so the purpose of these slides is to review some of the basics around what we're doing. Our goal over time is going to be to reveal and to share more and more information with all of you parents about this so that we can unpack it, explain it, and help it make sense. And one of the goals really here is that all of us, teachers, students, parents, and all stakeholders can have even better conversations about learning, about what is being taught, and about how our students are growing in the classroom and as learners. Okay, so let me proceed with this slide deck. Yeah, so as we said, this really is all about making sure that all of you are updated. So I'm going to move forward here. So first of all, I am the one who is leading this presentation today, but I want you to be aware that at AAE, one of our standing committees is called the Teaching and Learning Priorities Committee. And that Teaching and Learning Priorities Committee has primarily concerned itself with grading and assessment over the last couple of years. So I am one of the leaders of that committee, and co-leading that committee alongside me include high school biology teacher, Miss Amanda Avery. Miss Avery teaches biology. She also teaches zoology, and she teaches AP environmental science. Also important to note is that Miss Avery is a part-time consultant with something called the Crescendo Education Group, which I'll tell you more about in a moment. So specifically, her job title with that group is that she is an equitable grading coach. And also co-leading our Teaching and Learning Priorities Committee is Miss Lauren Conti. Miss Conti is our instructional coach. She was previously our 10th grade English teacher. And previous to that, she had a lot of experience as a middle school English teacher. And so these individuals bring great insight and a great deal of talent, wisdom, experience, and extreme knowledge of the research base around grading and assessment. And so you can see on the bottom here, as I said, our purpose with this committee is to support the improvement of teaching and learning practices school-wide, including supporting teachers as they make these urgently needed changes to our school's grading practices. So let's talk for a moment about what equitable grading systems means. As you all know, we are a school and we are a school district that is very concerned and very invested in anti-racist educational practice and improving equity through especially racial equity, but equity for all groups who attend our school. And so as a result, we look at our systems to make sure that our systems are in line with that mission. And when we think about grading specifically, you can see this these words in bold here. Equitable grading systems ensure that grades are accurate, bias resistant, and motivational. So some of the practices that will help us to achieve this will include using fewer levels of proficiency, being transparent about learning objectives and success criteria, separating behaviors from academic achievement, eliminating the disproportionate impact of a zero, and using the most recent and valid assessment evidence from a student to determine their performance, or determine their grade, more or less. And on the bottom of this slide, you can see this timeline here. So on the left is where we are coming from, and on the right is where we are going to. On the left was traditional grading practices, which is something that we have been evolving away from over time. And on the right, you can see is standards-based grading. And standards-based grading is something that we are moving to. But in the meantime, what we are doing is really making sure that we look at our systems and make sure that we are implementing systems that are accurate, bias resistant, and motivational, and also help us to build the capacity needed to become a school that that grades using standards and in a standards-based grading fashion. What I just also want to say here is you can see this book on the right is called Grading for Equity. And this is a book that is published by, its lead author is Joe Feldman, who leads the Crescendo Education Group. This book is one of the books that is really guiding our work. We are very well steeped in the research around grading and assessment, but this is one of the books that is really guiding us, both in understanding a number of the challenges and problems that come up with historical grading trends, and also ways of thinking about the future of and ways to implement highly equitable and motivational grading strategies at our school. So that's a book that we really are influenced by. It's important that we start by talking about vocabulary. We need to be on the same page when we use certain terms. And so one of the things that our committee, before becoming the Teaching and Learning Priorities Committee, we were the Grading and Assessment Committee. And one of the things that we really spent time nailing down were vocabulary words. So when we say certain things, what do they mean? So if you look at this flow chart from the top, you can see it starts with an overview saying, here is the whole student, overall student achievement, right? So overall, how is the child doing? Not just academically, but how is their citizenship? How is their character? How is their behavior? How are their extracurricular activities? How are all of those different things that we summarize when we think about how is a student doing in school? And the first thing that we want to do is we want to separate that into two separate categories. And the first one on the left, we label habits, okay? And on the right in green, you can see that we label that performance. Okay, so in this case, habits can sometimes also be thought of as behaviors, or the ways in which the behaviors that a child has, the norms, the expectation, the assumptions that the child may have, the way in which they go about doing things like organizing themselves, turning in work, communicating with their teacher, etc. Whereas performance, you can see there it says reported as 1 grade based on standards. Performance is really meant to be, what does the student know and what are they able to do? So if we're talking about this in terms of a math class, we want to be very specific about, is the child able to, for example, multiply fractions, right? Are they able to do that? Are they able to perform that skill? Do they show knowledge and understanding of how to do it and why it matters, right? That is separate from, is the child motivated? Is the child turning in their work? Is the child asking the right questions? So it's really important to begin with that we distinguish between those two things. And then you can see under performance is just like I said, we say that performance is a combination of skills and knowledge. What is the student able to do and what do they know? So one of the first things that we're working to do this year is to make sure that academic habits are not included in a child's performance or academic grade. So you can see here on this slide that it says academic habits will be reported in PowerSchool separately from academic performance using the AAE Academic Habits rubric. This year and moving forward, teachers will teach, assess, and regularly provide feedback on academic habits. And this is that rubric. So across all students in grades 6 through 12, we teachers, we educators will be teaching this rubric. We will be sharing that these are expectations. These are things that we expect to see from all AAE students. And these will be reported as their own grade. They will not be included in your child's grade in classes. Each student for each class will get these as a separate grade. And so you can see that the 3 categories here are interact, aspire, and engage. And then in the indicators column, you can see that there are bulleted I statements under each of those areas. So for interact, you can see it begins with, I communicate and collaborate with all individuals in order to drive learning forward. For each of those statements, we then over on the right would have a rating. So the teachers will rate their students on each of these different statements, these I statements. And of course, the goal is going to be to grow over time. So when we think about what it means to be a college-ready student, to be a student who is ready for college and career, these are the different types of things that we want to make sure that our students are developing and growing with as middle and high school students. The next thing that we will do is we are coming together around a new academic performance scale. And this will be standards informed. So if you as parents are not already familiar with what academic and disciplinary standards are, that is something that we will unpack in some future meetings and talk about different disciplines and different academic standards and what they mean. And so what we are doing as a school is coming together and alongside the CREC district, coming together around a new academic performance scale. So we will be talking about academic performance in terms of these different categories. And so this is that scale. So what you can see is that on the left-hand column, we have different performance areas: exemplary, proficient, approaching, developing, and beginning. And then there are two categories on the bottom, which are not progressing or insufficient evidence. Okay, so each of these different categories is meant to describe a different performance level that a student may show on any given task or assignment, pardon me. So if I start at the top, you can see that exemplary performance means that the student demonstrates in-depth inferences and or extensive connections and applications and communicates a high-level understanding of learning outcomes. That is a very high level of performance. The next category down is proficient, and this really is the goal. Student demonstrates and communicates a clear understanding of targeted learning outcomes, including proficient application of significant concepts, knowledge, and skills. So like I said, that's the goal. That's where we want our students to get to. For the approaching category, the student demonstrates progress towards meeting targeted learning outcomes, but may require various degrees of additional instruction to show understanding and application of significant content, knowledge, and skills. And then below that is developing. Then below that is beginning. And so you can see this is hopefully meant to be a trajectory. And also, one of the things, of course, that we expect is that all students will not begin the year at proficient. They will not begin the year at exemplary, especially if it is in a subject area that they don't have prior knowledge. A student may begin at beginning or developing, and then will hopefully progress closer to proficient and maybe even exemplary as the year goes on. We're going to go into a lot more information about how this works as we get closer to the first progress report, which should be around October 4th. And there's going to be more information coming out about the changes that we're making and how teachers will implement this over time. But one of the first things I want you to know is that at our open house this Wednesday, I, alongside Miss Avery and Miss Conti, will offer some grading sessions at the open house. We want to make sure that parents are aware that those will be available. So when the open house information on those sessions goes out, know that if you would like to attend that, you can, and that will be a live session, and we will have time for questioning and answering then. And then even longer than that session, we will have a grading town hall on Wednesday, October 6th. And I will send out information about the time for that, so that you can all plan to attend that. Feel free at any time to send me an email, to send any communication to the school that you would like to if you have more questions about the work that we're doing. All right, everyone, thank you. Thank you for watching this video, and take care. We will talk soon.